We're going to deal with a native Floridian. We're going to deal with my favorite alto saxophone player. Growing up, I used to hang out with a guy named Leon Dixon, and we had a little band together in the 60s, and I'm a J.J. Johnson cat because I'm a trombone player, and Leon was a Cannonball Adderley cat because he was an alto saxophone player, and that's how I learned about Cannonball. I later learned from my band director that Cannonball was a FAMUan. He went to FAMU. But I digress. Let me move back a few years. Born in Tampa, Florida, to two educators. His father was a cornet player, musician. Later, both parents got jobs at Florida University, Florida A&M University. That's right, FAMU, where I went to school. I used to actually see the Adderleys walking through the set on a daily basis. Elegant little couple. Cannonball, as he was called, it was a derivative of a high school nickname that his friends gave him, Cannibal, because he loved to eat. He had a ferocious appetite, and so his friends called him Cannibal. And that wasn't nice. So it got shortened to Cannon, and later Cannonball, Tampa Cannonball, whatever, it became Julian Cannonball Adderley. Now, of course, when his family moved to Tallahassee, so did he. And he eventually ended up majoring in music and playing in the famed Marching 100 and in the symphonic band. Now, I know from personal experience he played in the FAMU Collegians with my band director, Turner Covington, who was a trombonist. I know that he had some of the same problems with Dr. Foster I did, because Doc didn't like jazz too much, and Cannonball did play the oboe, believe it or not, in the symphonic band. But he played the saxophone in nightclubs. Both he and his brother backed up a young musician you all may have heard of when they were in Tallahassee. He lived in Tallahassee because he was from a little town called Greenville, Florida. His name was Ray Charles. That's right, Cannonball. And his brother Nat both played in Ray Charles' band when Ray Charles lived in Tallahassee. Bet you didn't know that one. Oh yeah. Now, eventually, as things would go, young Julian would graduate, and he would then move down to Broward County and take a job teaching high school band. Yes, he would. And he taught for a couple of years. Did a good job. But during the summers, he'd make his way up to New York. On one occasion, he was playing at Cafe Bohemia, and Miles Davis took a look at him and went, "Hey man, you need to come on up to New York. You're a bad cat. I could lose you." But Cannonball, you know, raised by educated, very practical cat, and he also had that ferocious appetite. He could not see himself in the life of a starving musician. So he went on back down to Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, he had to be at Fort Lauderdale, have a good job down there. He could eat like he wanted to eat. But then that next summer he went back to New York. And this time things looked up. And Miles made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and other cats are making him offers, and he goes, "You know what? I might be able to make this work." And, you know, I could eat good too and play this jazz and not be dealing with that high school mess. So he moved I think somewhere around 1955, to New York City. Started establishing himself as a session man with just about anybody who would let him play. 1958, Miles Davis himself helped produce Cannonball's album, Something Else, because Cannonball was something else. Boy, he could play that saxophone, no doubt about it. And later on, Cannon worked with Miles in his recordings, Milestones, and later, the great album that everybody knows. Miles has always been known for the blues, and everybody knows all about that. Cannonball was there with John Coltrane and all those bad cats, okay? Now, Cannonball continued to work with the kind of a hard bop thing and having his own groups, but his brother Nat was kind of a composer, and he liked that funky kind of thing. He wrote tunes like Sack of Woe and Jive Samba. And so Cannon had a quintet with his brother Nat. And they got to be pretty popular because they had this jamming kind of a dancing music that had even some pop hits. And later on, in the 60s, he hooked up with a pianist from Austria named Joseph Zawinul. And Zawinul was a funky little white cat. He wrote a tune called Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. And this was a big hit for Cannonball in 1966. Everybody was even dancing to that Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. It was even covered by a rock group called the Buckingham. Mercy, Mercy, Mercy was a very big hit, and so now Cannon is set. Things are going well. Man, we're doing our thing. He and Nat are playing and writing and traveling and recording, and things are just great. But somewhere around 1974, 75, Cannon started having some health issues, probably due to that ferocious eating. And he had a stroke. And, brain aneurysm, all that kind of thing. He did survive it for a while. But while traveling on the road in 1975, he had another major stroke in Gary, Indiana. And that is where he died. One of the things I remember, I met Cannonball more than a few times because, as I said, he is a fellow from New York, and he always came back to Tallahassee to visit his parents. And they'd always arrange for a concert and even a clinic in the music building. Even though Dr. Foster didn't like no jazz, you couldn't say no to the big Cannonball. I remember going to this clinic, and Cannon offered his entire library to the university and everything, and that was not really met with favor. There was that transition period there in the late 60s when we were trying to figure out where we were going as a nation, and the emphasis was on classical music, European classical music at black institutions, not black classical music, which would have included jazz. So the university lost that opportunity. But when Cannonball did pass away, he did return to Tallahassee, and he is buried there. His career was just wonderful. His personality, I mean, he was such a great MC, and his live albums, you get a chance to hear him talk and get his sense of wit and intelligence and his sense of humor. Such a warm individual, so open to us young students But man, did I mention he could play the living heck out of the alto saxophone? That big old fat sound on that King Super 20 which he played, oh yeah. My man, Cannonball Adderley, the Tampa Cannonball, the FAMU Rattler, his legacy will live forever. And he's one of those guys who was able to bring hard bop jazz to a very wide audience, even to the point of making pop hits with Mercy, Mercy, Mercy and Jive, Samba and Sacavo and so many other wonderful tunes that the people just loved. So let's say thank you, Cannonball, for bringing us back to the groove, baby. And thank you very much for listening.